children's attorney, Mr. Kosorik, various agency workers, and foster parents. We are here for an adjudication in this matter, and it's my understanding that there is a plea agreement. Is that true,
Hello?
Mr. Vin?
Yes, it's true, Your Honor.
Right. Would you place that plea agreement on the record?
Certainly.
The petition, I should say.
Is Your Honor asking me to place the amendments on the record?
Yes, just briefly, so that they're so that we are all looking at the same, making sure we are all looking at the same amended petition.
Okay. In paragraph A, the first sentence will remain the same. The remainder will be deleted and replaced with the statement, despite recently working services through Arbor Circle, conditions still exist in the home which caused this case to come before the court. Paragraph B will remain the same. In paragraph C, in the fourth line, we will strike financial and emotional. Let's see. In paragraph F, we will strike the second sentence. In paragraph G as in golf, we will leave the first sentence as written and replace the remainder with the statement, Ms. Woodenberg came home intoxicated and admitted to pouring bleach on Mr. Thomas's belongings. Paragraphs H and I will remain the same. In paragraph J as in Joliet, we will strike everything after the first sentence. And I believe the rest remains the same.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega.
That sounds correct, Your Honor.
Ms. Mobilia.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And are either of these children eligible for membership in a Native American band or tribe?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And are the parties willing to waive the reading of the petition initially?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mhm.
Yes, Your
No
Honor.
No objection.
Okay. And Mr. Kosorik, do you believe that the proposed plea is in the best interest of each of these children?
It is, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Thomas and Ms. Woodenberg, if you would unmute and raise your right hands, please. All right. And Ms. Woodenberg, do you understand the petition?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, same question.
Yes.
If in fact you enter a plea today, you will be giving up a number of rights. The first is the right to a trial by a judge or by a jury. The next is the right to require the prosecutor to prove the allegations by a preponderance or majority of the evidence. The third is the right to question the prosecutor's witnesses in person in court under oath. And lastly, the right to have the court order that any witnesses you would believe would be helpful to your side of the case come to court and testify. Ms. Woodenberg, do you have any questions about these rights?
No, I don't.
Do you understand the rights that you'll be losing or giving up if you enter the plea today?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, do you have any question about these rights?
No.
And do you understand the rights that you'll be losing or giving up if you enter a plea today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There are a number of consequences that may flow from a plea today. The first is that your children may be made temporary wards of the court, which means that the court has broad discretion regarding their placement, which can be in foster care with a relative or in a suitable institution. You'll be required to comply with the treatment plan to show that you're able to provide a safe and appropriate home for your children. You may be required to pay for some of the costs of this case, including your attorney fees, costs of care if your children are placed outside of the home, counseling costs, etc. Now, we hope that the next thing will not happen, and it certainly is not happening today, but I am required to tell you of all the possible consequences in the future of your plea. If you cannot show that you can provide a safe and appropriate home for your children within a reasonable amount of time, given the circumstances and your progress, there may be a future request to terminate your parental rights, and your plea today may be used as evidence in that proceeding. And finally, if your rights are ultimately terminated in the future, you will have no input to your child's medical treatment, education, discipline, or residence. You'll have no right to parenting time with your child, no right to inherit from them or receive their earnings. If you have a child support obligation, it will continue until a court of competent jurisdiction modifies or terminates it, an order of adoption is entered, or the child is emancipated by what's called operation of law. Do you understand all of those possible future consequences? Ms. Woodenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
And Ms. Woodenberg, do you have any questions regarding the consequences of today's plea if you choose to admit the allegations in the petition?
No, I don't.
Mr. Thomas, same question.
No.
Okay. And Ms. Woodenberg, have you reviewed the petition and plea agreement with your attorney?
Yes.
Do you need to speak with her again before we go further?
No.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, same question. Do you need to speak with your attorney?
No.
Okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is go through each paragraph of the amended petition. I will read it, and then I will ask each of you for the paragraphs that pertain to you to admit, deny, or or plead no contest. All right. Paragraph A reads, Mariah Woodenberg is the biological mother. Despite recently working services through Arbor Circle, conditions still exist in the home which caused this case to come before the court. Ms. Woodenberg,
I agree.
you admit,
Admit.
right? And Mr. Thomas?
This question pertains to me too?
Yes.
Yes. I agree.
You admit?
Yeah.
Okay. Paragraph B reads, the legal father of Anaya is unknown. No one claiming to be the father of this child has come forward to provide any care, custody, financial, or emotional support for the child. Additionally, the unknown father has done nothing to rectify the conditions that exist in the home which caused this case to come before the court. Ms. Woodenberg.
Admit.
Paragraph C reads, Robert Thomas is the legal father via friend of the court, case number 2018-08. Mr. Thomas is currently incarcerated at the Carson City Correctional Facility with a release date of June 28th, 2024. Mr. Thomas has not come forward to provide any care, custody for Robert. Additionally, Mr. Thomas has done nothing to rectify the conditions that exist in the home which caused this case to come before the court. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, I agree.
You admit?
Yes, I admit.
All right. Paragraph D reads, Mariah Woodenberg has been convicted of operating while intoxicated in 2014, misdemeanor operating while intoxicated, impaired, second offense 2015, misdemeanor domestic violence 2020, ordinance violation of domestic violence in 2020, operating misdemeanor domestic violence 2023. Ms. Woodenberg?
Admit.
Paragraph E, Robert Thomas has been convicted of felony armed robbery 2011, felony financial transaction device, illegal use or sale 2018, felony financial transaction device, illegal sale or use 2018, felony controlled substance possession of methamphetamine, ecstasy 2022, and felony weapons, felony firearm in 2022. Mr. Thomas.
Yes, I admit.
Okay. Paragraph F states in 2019, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg and Mr. Thomas for improper supervision of RT. Ms. Woodenberg?
Can you read that again?
In 2019, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg and Mr. Thomas for improper supervision of RT.
RJ?
RT.
They call him RJ, Your Honor.
RJ. I'm trying not to use a full name since we're live streaming. So RJ.
Sorry.
Can
You said in
Admit.
2019.
I don't.
Mr. Thomas, I'm going to ask you to turn your video off because your internet is very unstable.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I'll say it again. Paragraph F reads, in 2019, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg and Mr. Thomas for improper supervision of RJ. Ms. Woodenberg.
I don't know what day that was. I don't know that question. I don't see it. I don't know to say.
Okay. Do you need to speak with your attorney?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Van Uller, would you please stop the recording in the live stream and put Ms. Woodenberg and Ms. Ortega in a breakout room, please? Both parties, you are still under oath. We took a brief recess so that Ms. Woodenberg could consult with her attorney regarding her answers to the petition. And it's my understanding that she is ready to resume the plea. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe we were at paragraph F. I will repeat it. In 2019, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg and Mr. Thomas for improper supervision of RJ. Ms. Woodenberg?
Omit.
Okay. And Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Thomas is only admitting to A, C, and E, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Paragraph G reads, in 2020, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg and Mr. Thomas for improper supervision of A, W, and R, T. Ms. Woodenberg came home intoxicated and admitted to pouring bleach on Mr. Thomas's belongings. Ms. Woodenberg?
Omit.
Paragraph H, in 2020, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg for improper supervision of AW and RJ. There were concerns Ms. Woodenberg was drunk and hit Mr. Thomas. Ms. Woodenberg?
Omit.
Paragraph I, in 2022, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg for physical abuse of AW. Ms. Woodenberg assaulted AW while being intoxicated.
What letter was that?
I.
Omit.
Paragraph J, in 2023, CPS substantiated Ms. Woodenberg for physical abuse and improper supervision of AW.
Omit.
K reads, on April 30th, 2024, RJ was found outside unsupervised at approximately 7:12 a.m. On May 1st, 2024, RJ was forensically interviewed and disclosed to CPS. He missed school the day prior because his mom was drunk. He reported he was trying to walk to school. Ms. Woodenberg?
Omit.
Paragraph L, on May 14th, 2024, Ms. Woodenberg got into a physical altercation and knocked AW's front tooth out. AW was forensically interviewed by CPS and disclosed her mom was intoxicated and pushed her into the bathtub and smushed her face against the side of the tub. AW disclosed once she stood up, her mother hit her in the face, knocking out her tooth. On May 15th, 2024, AW showed CPS bruising on both her arms and left calf and reported they were caused during the altercation. Ms. Woodenberg?
No contest.
Paragraph M, as in Mary, reads, on May 14th, 2024, RJ was forensically interviewed by CPS and disclosed observing his mother and AW get into a fight. He reported, quote, mom was pushing AW and her teeth fell out, unquote. Robert stated, quote, mom said she was going to kill her, end quote. Robert disclosed, quote, my mom called to the police right away, end quote. My mom pushed her to the floor, then my sister went to school, end quote. Robert stated, quote, she was drinking again, end quote.
No contest.
Paragraph N, as in Nancy, states on May 14, 2024, Ms. Woodenberg was arrested and charged with felony domestic violence and or knowingly assaulting a pregnant individual, third offense. A no contact order was issued between Ms. Woodenberg and AW.
Omit.
Paragraph O reads, AW has been staying at her grandmother's house since May 14, 2024. She has run away twice. On May 17, 2024, Ms. Woodenberg reported to CPS the safest place for AW is foster care. The family has been unable to provide any additional supports who could care for AW while the no contact order is in place. A pickup order was authorized for AW on May 17th, 2024. She was entered into lien due to running away and her location being unknown. Wyoming PD located AW on May 18th, 2024, and CPS executed the pickup order.
Omit.
Paragraph P, ongoing reports from Wyoming High School's Dean of Students and Resource Officer have noted concerns with AW engaging in sexual activity, marijuana use, and having no proper supervision.
Omit.
Ms. Woodenberg, has anyone made any promises to you or threatened you in any way in order to encourage you to admit the allegations of the petition?
No.
Are you admitting or pleading no contest of your own free will?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, has anyone made any promises to you or threatened you in any way in order to encourage you to admit the petition?
No.
Are you admitting
No.
these allegations of your own free will?
Yes.
And Ms. Woodenberg, has anyone told you that the court would go easier on you if you admitted the petition?
No.
Mr. Thomas, same question.
No.
I am satisfied that there's a factual basis to accept the plea that has been entered by Ms. Woodenberg as well as Mr. Thomas, that they have been fully advised of their rights and are freely, understandingly, and voluntarily entering into these pleas regarding the allegations of this petition. I further find by preponderance of the evidence that one or more of the statutory grounds alleged in the petition are true, and that Ms. Woodenberg and Mr. Thomas are respondents in this matter. Appellate review is available to challenge any errors in the adjudicatory process, which may be challenged in an appeal from the initial order of disposition following adjudication. If you are indigent, you are entitled to the appointment of an attorney to represent you on any appeal as of right and to preparation of any relevant transcripts. You may be barred from challenging the assumption of jurisdiction or the removal of your children from your parent custody in an appeal from the order terminating parental rights if you do not timely file an appeal under MCR 7.204 or a delayed appeal under MCR 3.993C. At any time while the court retains jurisdiction over your child, you may challenge the continuing exercise of that jurisdiction by filing a motion for rehearing pursuant to MCL 712A.21 or by filing an application for leave to appeal with the Michigan Court of Appeals. And Mr. Vanderkolk, would you and your adjudicative witnesses like to be excused?
I would, but we need to take some testimony on the unknown father, Your Honor.
That's right. Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. Please proceed, Mr. Vanderkolk.
Thank you. I'd call Caitlin Snyder at this time.
Yes.
And will you assign the case of RJ T?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to, just one moment. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you also assigned the case of AT?
AW.
Okay. AW?
Yes.
Were you able to locate the legal father to AW?
No.
Okay. What efforts did you make to do so?
Spoke with Ms. Woodenberg, efforts to speak with Anaya to see if she knew who her father was, requesting friend of the court records, and no legal father was listed.
Ms. Woodenberg did not identify anybody?
No.
Has any man come forward claiming to be the father of AW?
No.
Has any man provided care, custody, or support for AW that you're aware of?
No.
And has any man done anything to correct the conditions or rectify the conditions that exist in the home, which caused this case to come before the court?
No.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Ms. Mobilia?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Kasorik? You're muted.
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Ortega?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any additional witnesses, Mr. Vanderkolk?
No, Your Honor. The people rest.
Ms. Mobilia?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Ms. Kasorik, or Mr. Kasorik?
Your Honor, I have no, however, based on the two no contest pleas, I think we need to at least introduce an exhibit for the factual basis for the no contest plea as to L and M. And I would propose exhibit number 1, which is the CPS report. And likewise, therein are included several police reports, including the dates of the incidents. I would propose that be used as the factual basis for paragraphs L and M.
Thank you. Any objection, Ms. Ortega?
Your Honor, the only objection I would make is that to only include those reports related to those 2 paragraphs and the facts related to just those 2 paragraphs.
Mr. Kasorik?
Well, Your Honor, I would simply state that they will be introduced in the dispositional stage of these proceedings. The parties admitted to the petition, so I think it's kind of a useless objection, although I'll leave it to the court's discretion. Thank you.
I think it's appropriate given the circumstances. I'll admit it with that condition.
Thank you.
Mr. Vanderkolk, I didn't ask you. Do you have any objection?
I have no objection. I guess I'd ask Ms. Ortega to provide the redacted report then for the factual basis, if that's what she's asking for.
Your Honor, I would just leave it to the court to exclude any of the information. I don't believe redaction is necessary, but the report would just be included, but can only consider those paragraphs.
I believe the court can do that.
Okay, I have no objection then.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So,
I have
do you have any witnesses?
I have no objection, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Okay. A statement, Mr. Vanderkolk.
Your Honor, I believe that that testimony is sufficient to prove by preponderance of the evidence that the legal father to AW is unknown and that no one has come forward to provide care, custody, or support for her or rectify the conditions of the home. So I'd ask that the court make the unknown father a respondent at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mobilia?
I just place a general objection on the record, Your Honor.
Mr. Kasorik?
Based on Mr. Vanderkolk's statement and the evidence introduced in the testimony, I believe it's appropriate to make the unknown father a respondent. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega, any statement?
Yes, thank you. Support making him the unknown father a respondent. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The court finds by preponderance of the evidence that one of the more of the statutory grounds alleged in the petition are true, specifically that AW's father is unknown and has not come forward to provide any support, and that the unknown father is a respondent in this matter. All right, now, Mr. Vanderkolk, would you like to be excused?
I would, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you. You're excused as well as your adjudicative witnesses.
Thank you.
Mr. Casort.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Ms. Sparks. In that capacity, you are the assigned worker for this family.
I am, yes.
Your Honor, before I proceed, I have some exhibits I need to introduce. As stated before in the adjudication stage, number 1 being the CPS investigative report dated 6/13. And as exhibit number 2, there's a packet from the agency that was provided by Ms. Sparks to the court and counsel. It includes the case service plan, which is actually the initial services plan with parent agency agreements. It's dated 6/15 of 24. And included in that packet are, there's a safety plan of 5/20/24, the Network 180 Crisis Safety Plan of 5/22 of 24, Corwell Health After Visit Summary dated 5/22 of 24. There are Wyoming Public School records for both AW and RJ. There is a household budget for Ms. Woodenberg dated 6/7 of 24. There's some information and camp trip permission for AW. And lastly, there's a Cherry Health letter recommending trauma assessment for AW. I would move for its admission in total as exhibit number 2, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
It's admitted.
Thank you. Ms. Sparks, needless to say, we're just beginning this case. Let's start with the children. Let's start with RJ, who's currently, and he has since the inception, he's been placed in relative placement, correct?
That is correct. He is placed with his paternal grandmother.
And is that placement a good placement for RJ?
It is.
You have no concerns?
Not at this time.
He is doing well in that placement.
He is doing well.
Right. Can you tell us about his health? Let's start with physical, and then we can go to his mental health. Are there any needs?
So since the inception of the case, a referral for play therapy was sent to Bethany Christian Services. He is on the wait list for that, but I was able to send a referral to the YWCA, and they had an open therapist. So RJ will be starting therapy through the YWCA in the next couple of weeks. And then he had a vision exam, and he's going to be getting glasses. And then he also had a dental exam, and he has a well child that is scheduled coming up. And at this time, there are no concerns for physical or dental concerns. And then for mental health, he will start counseling.
He's just a regular young boy who is very rambunctious, loves to play, correct?
He does love to play. He is all boy.
Good. I noticed in one of the reports there were some concerns about some at least fighting behavior at school that the school had noticed. Will that somehow be addressed?
So that is something that did calm down at the end of the school year. It is something that will be addressed in the fall. He will be attending a new school that I recently just learned about, and so that can be addressed. He will be evaluated for an IEP in the fall, and so in that evaluation, behaviors will be discussed.
Any activities that you know of that are being planned for the summer vacation? I know it's almost over, but if you can tell the court a little bit about if there is any activities that he's involved in.
There are not any specific activities at this time. I have been looking for some day camps for him to be able to go and socialize with peers and just be able to release some of that energy that he has. I've just not found any yet that has availability. I know that he goes to the park a lot and plays. They have a little swimming pool at the caregiver's home that he likes to play in. So he's very active.
Plus he has cousins who actually stay there too.
Correct. So he has people to play with and keep busy with.
Times with both parents, has that begun, and how is that progressing?
Yeah, it has begun. At case inception, he started with in-person parenting times with Ms. Woodenberg. They occur twice a week, 1 hour each time. They go well. Ms. Woodenberg has attended all but one parenting time, and that just she was not feeling well. Also, the visits go good. So RJ is very happy to see Ms. Woodenberg and play.
There are times in the visits that I've monitored where it seems like he just kind of like disassociates and is like he's by himself. I've been told by our case supervisor that that is decreasing, so that's good. When the day that Mr. Thomas was released from prison, we had a visit that day, and we've been doing weekly visits since. There's one visit a week for 1 hour. Mr. Thomas has attended each week. RJ is always happy to see his dad, running up to him, giving him a hug. They play with toys, play sports, basketball, throw the football. Very active, and visits go well. There are no concerns.
And he likewise does see his older sister.
Yes, he does love to see his older sister.
And that happens on a regular basis, and everything's going well in that respect, correct?
So AW and RJ have monthly sibling visits. I know that the caregivers of RJ and the caregivers of AW are in communication to set up sibling visits and for them to be able to occur more often.
Anything else about RJ you believe the court should be aware of that's not covered in your testimony or the reports?
Not at this time.
Let's move to AW. She is currently placed in an unrelated foster home, correct?
Correct. She is currently placed with an unlicensed fictive kin placement, and she has been placed there for two weeks.
All right. And she was placed, of course, with another foster family before that.
Correct, she was.
And the reason for the move?
So the original foster home from the beginning was only a short-term placement until the agency could secure a more long-term placement for AW. And so the original licensed foster home actually are the ones that found this placement for AW, and it's been going really well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And AW is at least, she's 15 currently?
I believe she turns 15 on Saturday.
Right. She has a birthday coming up. That's wonderful.
I believe it's sometime this weekend.
Okay. And can you tell us what? Can you tell us what AW is currently involved in during the summertime?
Yeah. So in June, AW went to a Christian camp for a week in Minnesota. She had a lot of fun since this camp has really found her love for Jesus and continues to go to church. AW, when she first came into care, she was really struggling, mental health, using substances. Once she stopped going to attending school at Wyoming High School, and we were able to really separate her from the group of people that she was associating with, she's really been able to change things around. Her mental health seems to be better. She attends weekly counseling. She's doing really well. There hasn't been any significant behavior issues or concerns in either foster placement, and she just continues to do really well.
She's attending counseling, and can you give the court a report of how that is progressing currently? Are there any other needs that she may have?
AW currently attends counseling weekly with a therapist for Terry Health. AW has seen this counselor for 2 years now, so it's not a new face to her. It goes well. AW reports that she feels comfortable with this therapist, and they've just been able to process recent events that have occurred and trauma and, the changes in AW's life. I have submitted a request for a trauma assessment, so just waiting to hear back if that has been approved or not for AW.
And that was going to be my next question, because one of the exhibits, at least in a packet that you provided to us on the last page, indicates that Ms. Wanning is the outpatient therapist, and she's recommending the trauma assessment be performed. Do we know how soon that can be done?
I do not know. I will probably know within a week if it's been approved or denied. If it's approved, it's typically a month to 2 months before the assessment occurs.
Is that something that you've discussed with AW, and is she okay with that too?
It is not something I've discussed with her yet.
Okay, but I'm assuming you will.
Yes, once if it gets approved, I will have that conversation with her.
So at least since the removal and since her placement in foster home, she's been doing well, much better than she has before, correct?
Correct.
There's a great improvement in her behaviors.
Yes, great improvement in behaviors, and I would say in her mental health as well.
Are there any services that AW could utilize currently that are not being utilized?
I have submitted a referral for AW for enhanced foster care services, which is where workers from Wellspring will go into the foster home and work with AW on coping skills and just areas that she's struggling in. And then they also will work with the foster parents on any struggles that they might be having in the home, and just really building that relationship and helping AW with any struggles.
You've already stated that AW and RJ do see each other on a regular basis, and currently mother's parenting times are suspended, both in a criminal case and in this case, correct?
Correct.
And do you believe that suspension is in the best interest of AW?
At this time, I do.
And what is your understanding of her wishes? Does she wish to see mother at this time or not?
In talking with the caregivers and with AW, it honestly switches day to day. She's going through a lot of feelings, and one day she does miss Miss Wittenberg and wants to see her, and she very much loves Miss Wittenberg. The next day she feels angry about the situation and angry at Miss Wittenberg. So it's changing in that day to day, and that's something that AW is processing in therapy.
And that will continue to be looked at and processed as we go along, correct?
Yes.
When was the last time that you actually had contact with AW?
Last Thursday.
Okay.
Last Thursday or Wednesday, I'm sorry.
She's not in school right now?
Not at this time. She's still on summer vacation.
And are there any other plans for her besides the camping trip or the camp trip that she went on in Minnesota?
I am not aware of any other things. The caregiver mentioned that she is working a few hours a day. I'm drawing a blank to the place that she's working. I believe it might be with the church or the school, but she's doing that.
Wonderful. Are there any other children in the current placement?
Yes, there are.
And she gets along with those children fine?
He does.
No reported problems?
There's not been anything reported to me.
No reported attempts to go AWOL since her placement in either of the homes?
Correct.
Wonderful. Anything else about AW that I think we may have missed?
I don't think so. Just very proud of her and the progress that she's making and how she's handling everything.
Wonderful. Let's move on to the parents. Let's start with Mr. Thomas. Can you tell us what his needs are currently? He's just been released from incarceration, correct?
Yes, he was released on June 28th. I have been in contact with him pretty frequently. Right now, the barriers are needing a psychological evaluation.
Has a referral been made?
It is in the process.
Okay.
Yep. A substance use assessment. He needs a vehicle, secured housing, domestic violence counseling, mental health counseling.
In reading of your reports, it appears to me that one of the biggest barriers currently would be domestic relations, parenting skills, and emotional stability. Am I missing anything else that's the main barrier?
Those would be the main.
And currently, you're just beginning to refer him for services?
Correct. So Mr. Thomas will be starting domestic violence counseling through the YWCA. The referral has been made. A counselor has been assigned, so that should be starting soon. I have been looking into services for housing and assistance for a vehicle. The psychological evaluation referral is in process. Mr. Thomas attends parenting times weekly, which is going great.
Is he looking for employment?
He is looking for employment, yes. He stated that he has been putting out applications.
All right. Any luck so far? I know it's been just a few weeks.
Not to my knowledge.
And I'm assuming that the psychological assessment referral has been done.
It is in process.
And how about substance abuse assessment?
That is in process as well.
Your communication with him is appropriate?
It is, yes. He has been very communicative. He responds and, yeah, has been very respectful.
Do you know what his current housing situation is?
As far as I know, he is currently staying at Miss Wittenberg's apartment while she is not there.
Do you find that problematic that he is staying there based upon the history of domestic violence between the two parties?
Not at this moment, with Miss Wittenberg not being there. That is something that is I need to look into more and talk with both of them about.
You'll follow
I know
up.
that, yes, and I know that Mr. Thomas is looking for his own secure housing.
And from observing his parenting times or reports of parenting times, are they going well? Are they appropriate?
They are appropriate and going well. Whenever RJ sees him, his face just lights up.
Anything else about Mr. Thomas?
Just in the few weeks that he's been released, I am impressed with his ability to just jump right in and communicate and get on board with what's needed, and his willingness to participate has been great.
And you'll encourage him to continue that good work, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Shall we move on to Ms. Woodenberg?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Woodenberg, currently, where is she housed?
Ms. Woodenberg currently is in a substance use inpatient housing.
And which inpatient program is she in?
Our Hope.
All right, and that is not in this county, I believe, correct?
It is.
It is in this county? Thank
Yes.
you.
Yep.
And how long has she been there already?
She has been there since the middle of June.
So it's approximately a month and a half now?
Yeah, it's been about a month.
Okay, thank you.
About a month.
All right, and do you have any reports from them currently?
Yes, I actually spoke with her therapist on Tuesday, and her therapist reported that Ms. Woodenberg is doing really well in the home. She's really taken accountability. She's doing what she needs to do. She has been a positive role model for the other women in the home, and she's really progressing quickly in the program. And her therapist is very impressed.
And when is her expected completion of that program?
September 11th.
Okay. And you will encourage her to complete that program and to continue her sobriety?
Yes, I will.
Right. So Ms. Woodenberg's major areas of need would, at least at this point, would be substance abuse, correct?
Substance abuse and parenting skills.
Right. How about domestic relations?
That as well, yes.
Right. And likewise, resource availability and management?
Yes. Ms. Woodenberg has tried applying for jobs prior to going into inpatient. She was just having a lot of roadblocks with the domestic violence on her record.
Right. And does she have the current pending charges?
There is a pending criminal case, yes.
Okay, and that involves AW?
Correct.
And that's currently unresolved, correct?
Correct.
And is that a felony charge?
To my understanding, it is.
And when's the next court date for her?
I believe that court hearing is September 12th.
Is it anticipated she'll be done with Our Hope at that point?
Yes.
Okay. So she is addressing the substance abuse by going into inpatient. Are there any other services currently, or when she comes out, do you believe that would be appropriate for her to address that issue and to stay sober?
So upon release of, while she's inpatient, I did submit a referral for supportive visitation services, which is where a parenting coach would go to her parenting times and just observe and then work with her one-on-one. And that's something that she's on a wait list for 5 to 6 weeks out. When she gets released or finishes the program at Our Hope, getting into like a step-down program for substance use. I know Arbor Circle has one, but just really keeping up on the services to retain the sobriety, domestic violence counseling, mental health counseling.
And then I read somewhere that a substance abuse assessment was being scheduled.
That is something that is going to be completed at Our Hope while she's inpatient.
Do you have a release of information for Our Hope?
I do.
Okay. If there is one completed and you will receive a copy, will you share that with counsel in the court?
Yes, I will.
And of course, one of the big reasons is domestic violence between her, the child, and of course her and Mr. Thomas and others. And have you made a referral to address domestic violence at the Y?
I did. Prior to Ms. Woodenberg going inpatient, she had just done an intake appointment at the YWCA, so that service can start back up once she's completed with the inpatient program.
So the intake appointment was already done, right, and finished?
Correct.
And right now we're simply waiting for her to finish her inpatient.
That is correct.
Anything else about Ms. Woodenberg that you believe is important that we may have missed?
Just that she's really, since the inception of the case, each time I speak with her, she continues to take accountability, recognize what went wrong, where it went wrong, and what she needs to do to make things better. So I would just encourage her to keep up her motivation and to rectify those barriers.
And her parenting times at RJ are going fine, right?
They are, yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Sparks, from talking with people throughout this case, does it appear that Ms. Wittenberg's anger issues or domestic violence issues are always within the scope of when she's drunk?
That in reading reports, that's what it appears to be, yes.
Okay. So, and in your communications with her, since she has been sober and in the sober, or in the inpatient, have you experienced her to be combative at all with you?
No, she has not been combative with me.
Okay. So is it fair to say that if Ms. Wittenberg can maintain her sobriety, a lot of these other things will fall in line?
It appears that way. Time will tell, I think, if she continues with the inpatient and continues with domestic violence counseling and the mental health counseling, I think it will help a lot.
Okay. Do you know if she has any mental health history? There really isn't anything in the petition. Do you know if she's been treated for mental health issues prior?
I believe she was diagnosed with anxiety.
Do you know if she needs any prescriptions that she doesn't have right now?
She is taking something for anxiety right now that she believes is helping.
Okay. And do you believe that the program that she's participating in is suitable for what the agency wants to address?
Yes, I do.
And did you say she's getting 2 visits a week? And does the child go to that facility where she is?
Yes.
And things are going well there?
Yes, they are.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Mobilia.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Mr. Thomas has been out about 3 weeks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why does he only have parenting time 1 hour a week?
So when kids 6 and older, their parenting times are once a week or 1 hour. Mr. Thomas started his parenting times after RJ's 6th birthday. And with Mr. Thomas being incarcerated for 2 years, we at the beginning, are just trying to slowly introduce things back to RJ and let them build on their relationship.
But Ms. Wittenberg has 2 hours a week with the same child.
That is correct, because Ms. Wittenberg started services and parenting times when RJ was 5. So the state requires 2 hours or 2 visits, 1 hour per visit a week for 5 and under. Once RJ turned 6, the agency did not feel it was in his best interest to take that hour away that he was already used to.
Okay, but Mr. Thomas has had even when he was incarcerated, he had a relationship with RJ, correct?
I am not fully aware of what that looked like. I believe that they may have spoke on the phone, but I am not fully aware of exactly what the relationship was like when he was incarcerated.
In your parent agency treatment plan, you said that RJ saw Mr. Thomas twice, but spoke to him frequently.
While he was incarcerated?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, that is what I was told, is they spoke frequently, but I don't know how often, and speaking on the phone and being in person are 2 different things.
But they maintained a relationship, right? How are you going to expand Mr. Thomas's parenting time?
Parenting times can be increased when parents are working services and showing progress. And so Mr. Thomas is only 3 weeks into this. So it is something that we are looking into and exploring. It's not, this 1 visit isn't necessarily a case-long determination.
Your requests are for a psych eval, which you made the referral for, correct?
The referral is in process.
What does that mean?
We're working on it.
Okay, so you haven't made it yet.
It's not been submitted, no.
And then you said he needs mental health counseling, but you wouldn't know that without a psych eval, right?
Well, with Mr. Thomas's incarceration and history, the agency would feel that mental health counseling would be beneficial for him.
What would his goals be?
That would be something that him and the counselor would decide together.
Wouldn't they want to know what they should address?
The counselor would get a copy of the parent agency treatment plan, and then from there they can discuss what specific goals they want to work on.
And the substance abuse assessment, I assume, is as the result of his criminal conviction, correct?
Yes.
Have you drug screened him?
He has not been drug screened.
Okay. Is that your intent?
Correct. Mr. Thomas will start randomized drug screenings at Family Outreach Center.
And DV counseling, you were present during the adjudication, right?
I was, correct.
And it seems like the aggressor was Mrs. Wittenberg and he was the victim. Right? That's what the petition says. Ms.
Yeah, so
Wittenberg-
based on conversation, like the testimony prior to me, yes, that's what it appears to be. Even victims can participate and benefit from domestic violence counseling.
I just want to make sure that we're understanding that as part of this petition, he looked like the victim, not the aggressor.
Mhm.
Is that being relayed to the Y?
The YWCA will get a copy of the petition and what needs to be worked on with him, and then from there they will make goals together.
Parenting skills. What are you recommending for parenting skills?
So visits have been going really well. A referral was submitted for supportive visitation services where he would get a parent coach that would watch their visit and then work with Mr. Thomas one-on-one. And that is, I believe, like an 18-week program.
So that's your intent, to refer him to supportive visitation?
Yes, the referral has been submitted.
Okay, and that would be during his one visit a week?
Correct, yes.
Is there any reason, in your report, you indicate that RJ lives with maternal grandmother. That's not correct, right? He lives with paternal grandmother.
Correct, he lives with paternal grandmother. Sorry about that. That must have been an error. I apologize.
And is it possible for a paternal grandmother to provide some supervision?
Yes, that is one of my recommendations for today would be for the agency to have discretion to allow the paternal grandma to be able to supervise their contact.
Okay. And despite the fact he doesn't have a vehicle, he's been having contact with you, getting to parenting time. It's not an issue, correct?
Correct. He has been able to use a friend's vehicle to get back and forth to parenting times.
Have you been providing him with gas cards or bus passes?
Gas cards.
Okay. All right. I have nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Kosarik, any follow-up?
Yes, Your Honor, real quickly, Ms. Sparks, you were asked and implied by Attorney Mobilia that Mr. Thomas was a victim in these assaults. If I look at paragraph G in the petition, it indicates that in 2020, that CPS substantiated Ms. Wittenberg and Mr. Thomas for improper supervision of AW and RJ. And it states that both children witnessed Mr. Thomas assaulting Ms. Wittenberg.
Objection, Your Honor, that's not part of the.
That is not the correct petition, Mr. Kosarik. That is not what was pled to today.
I understand that, but that allegation is also contained in the CPS report, so I'll refer to the CPS report. Do you recall reading that in the CPS report, Ms. Sparks?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Ms. Ortega?
No follow-up, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Mobilia?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kosarik, additional witnesses?
No additional witnesses, Your Honor.
Ms. Ortega, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Mobilia, witnesses?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Statements, Mr. Kosarik?
Thank you, Your Honor. Recommendations are appropriate. I would further ask that the court order that both parents also provide drug screens and alcohol screens to the agency. I believe that a psychological for both parents would be appropriate likewise. In other respects, I think that the parenting time of Ms. Wittenberg as to AW should be continued to be suspended, and that is by wishes of my client mostly and by the court orders at this point. Mr. Thomas, of course, has just been released. He is working on his parent agency agreement, but we're very early in the progression of this case, so I guess the proof will be in the pudding. I will tell the court that I had a chance to visit with RJ at his current placement. I found it to be appropriate. He's a happy and very rambunctious young child. He's doing well with at his grandma's house. He has many cousins that he plays with, and he's just a happy kid. He needs to continue that. As to AW, I believe she is staying with her. She is staying with her current placement with the new foster family, fictive kin. I spoke to her over the phone twice, yesterday and today. She indicates that she is glad that she didn't have to come to court here today in person, that it was recorded via Zoom. That was good. She also indicated that at this time she does not wish to have contact with her mom. That's unfortunate, but based upon the history between them two, that is something that needs to be addressed in counseling. Otherwise, I believe the recommendations are appropriate. I would ask the court to adopt those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega?
Thank you, Your Honor. First, for AW's parenting time with my client, I would request that there would not be a full suspension. There is a no contact order in place in the criminal matter. However, if that matter resolves, or if that no contact is lifted, I do think it's appropriate to give the agency discretion. So the child could still refuse some parenting times, but testimony today shows that she goes back and forth with wanting to see her mom. Clearly, her mom would love to see her at any point in time and be ready and willing to start parenting times with her. But I would ask that the court allow supervised visitation at the discretion of the agency, knowing that a no contact order kind of supersedes our orders at this point. So the child is protected that way. I would ask that parenting time actually be ordered supervised or unsupervised by the agency, because it appears that if Ms. Wittenberg does graduate from this program, and it's my understanding she intends to potentially go to sober living for a period of time, we have 3 months until the next hearing. And so she may have shown enough progress at that point to where the agency is comfortable with her in the parenting time, even with relatives or a third party supervisor that they find appropriate that may not be from the agency. So I'd ask that the parenting time for the youngest child read supervised or unsupervised at the discretion of the agency. Otherwise, the recommendations are appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mobilia.
Your Honor, I have no objection to the recommendations. Just a little concerned about, the parenting time and my client being limited to 1 hour. It seemed that case inception was when the child was 5, and I'm not sure why that means my client only gets 1 hour because he turned 6 after he started his parenting time. The case, was open. I do ask the court to allow additional parenting time if the agency cannot do it through the paternal grandmother, who is the relative caregiver. And my client, from the testimony of the worker, is jumping on board and getting things done, Your Honor.
Thank you. The court finds that the lawyer guardian ad litem has complied with the requirements of the statute. That return of either of these children to a parent would cause a substantial risk of harm to the juvenile or society. That consistent with circumstances, reasonable efforts to prevent or eliminate removal of the children from the home were made as determined by a prior order. That reasonable efforts shall be made to preserve and reunify the family, make it possible for these children to safely return home. The custody of each of these children with a parent presents a substantial risk of harm to their life, physical health, or mental well-being. No provision of service or other arrangement other than a removal is reasonably available to adequately safeguard them from risk of harm to their life, physical health, or mental well-being at this time. The conditions of custody at the placements away from the home and with the individuals with whom each of the children are placed are adequate to safeguard each of these children's health and welfare. The siblings are not in joint placement because one is with a paternal grandmother and the other one is with a fictive kin. That sibling contact is occurring according to law. The court orders that the children be placed in the temporary custody of this court, placed with the Department for Care and Supervision. That the adjudicated respondents, Ms. Wittenberg, Mr. Thomas, and the unknown father, shall comply and benefit from the case service plan. In addition, they're to sign any necessary releases. The parenting time of Ms. Wittenberg with AW be supervised until further order of the court upon the lifting of that no contact order. That the parenting time of Ms. Wittenberg with RJ is at the discretion of the agency to allow unsupervised or supervised parenting time by its designee. The parenting time of Mr. Thomas is at the discretion of the department to allow unsupervised or supervised parenting time by its designee. Continue the attorneys in this matter. And do we have a date for a review hearing in about 90 days, Ms. Van Oler?
90 days, but we are looking at October 1st at 9 a.m.
Any conflicts with that date or time?
No, Your Honor, not for me.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. And Ms. Wittenberg and Mr. Thomas, I have to say that I'm very impressed by the fact that it appears that both of you are taking this very seriously, that you're working hard already on your barriers, and I just encourage you to continue to do so. You will make progress if you continue to attack these barriers and take advantage of the services that are being offered to you the way that you've already shown that you intend to, and that these children will be returned before you know it if you just keep your nose to the grindstone. All right.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I need to add one thing. Earlier in the court proceeding, it was mentioned that there was no Native American ancestry. Mr. Thomas and the paternal grandmother have both said that there may be some Cherokee. They might be related to the Cherokee tribe. So I have sent the appropriate paperwork out, and I'm just waiting to hear back from the tribe.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Kasor, any questions on that issue?
Well, a little late in the proceedings, Your Honor, so at this time I really have no questions. Let's see what happens. I guess my only question would be, do you know whether or not they're members?
That's what I'm waiting to hear back.
So you don't know. Thank you.
Correct.
All right. Yeah, that would have been something important to have brought to the court's attention at the time of the adjudication. But at this point, we will see what happens. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We have mother's attorney, Ms. Ortega. We have Mr. Thomas's attorney and also attorney for unknown father for AW, Donna Mobilia. Children's attorney, Mr. Kosorik, and then let's see, we have a couple foster parents and a couple of agency workers. All right, Mr. Kosorik.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will call Ms. Sparks. For this hearing, you drafted a case service plan with its attached parent agency agreements for both parents, and it's dated 9/13 of this year.
Yes.
I would move for its admission as exhibit number 1, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, it's submitted.
Thank you. Likewise, you've submitted to the court and counsel a packet of supportive documents, and it has many reports and documents in that packet, including our HOPE report, Network 180 access screening for Ms. Woodenberg, dated 6/11 of 24, foster care supportive visitation reports, semi-annual transition plan, Duncan Lake speech therapy for RT, YWCA men choosing alternatives to violence initial report, some gas cards. There's a trauma assessment for AW dated 9/4 of 24, packet of forensic fluid screens for Mr. Thomas, and a proof of mailing to Cherokee Nation for information as to tribe membership. Correct?
That is correct.
All right. As far as the proof of mailing to the Cherokee Nation, did you get any reply on that?
I have not received any letters back from the Cherokee. I received the certified mail. It's like the green slip that they received my letter, but I have not received anything back from them besides that.
Have you attempted to reach out to them to get at least some initial disposition as to whether or not any of the parents or the children may become eligible or are members of the tribe?
I have left 2 messages. I have not heard back from the tribe though.
All right. And you will continue to try to reach out and get that information because it's important for the court.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's start then with the children in this case. They are placed in 2 separate foster care homes. AW is placed in a licensed foster home. And of course, RJ, which is actually RT, but we refer to him as RJ, is placed in a relative foster home, correct?
That is correct.
How are the children doing in their respective homes?
Both children are doing very well in the home. Do you want me to start with AW?
That's fine. Yep.
Okay, so I'll start with AW. The last month and a half, her mental health has just been significantly fragile. She in therapy is processing a lot. It is bringing up a lot of trauma, events that have happened, memories, and it's just really made her spiral. AW has a lot of guilt for this case. She holds a lot of that guilt. Myself, the therapist, the foster parents all talk with her about it is not her fault. She's the child. She didn't, make these choices. It's just something that she really struggles with. So that is something that myself, the therapist, the caregivers, we're all, and the enhanced foster care workers are all working together on to just wrap around AW, love on her, and just make sure she's getting all the support that she needs. She's doing really well in the home. The caregivers have done an amazing job at just really meeting her where she needs. And it's just been really, really helpful for AW. She started a new school at the end of August, and she has said that is going well. There was something with a math class at the beginning of the school year that just really wasn't working out for AW, so they switched that, and then that got better. I was told that AW is very popular and everyone already knows her. And in the hallway, everyone says hi. And so she had liked that. That made her feel good. She's participating in therapy. Her therapist and I are in close contact and just making sure that I'm doing everything I can to support AW and that the therapist is as well. And also for us to be able to support the caregivers and supporting AW. AW, this reporting period, got a job at Culver's. So she was pretty excited about that. This month, she starts segment 1 driver's training, and she's looking forward to that. So that's awesome. She's up to date on all her medical and dental. She did just have a doctor's appointment last Thursday. The doctor prescribed AW some Prozac per AW's request due to her anxiety and depression that is very significant at this time. That is, AW is like begging for some sort of help and relief. I had reached out to Ms. Woodenberg to get approval. So my understanding is, since it's a psychotropic medication, we have to have parental consent in order for that to start. Ms. Woodenberg wasn't okay with that. She had thought that Prozac was too strong of a medication. So I had suggested for her to contact the doctor and just have a conversation with the doctor about it. As far as I know, like, that has not happened. I know that with youth being in care, that they have like rights and responsibilities, and with AW being 15, one in the rights and responsibilities, it states that she has the right to receive medical, dental, vision, and mental health care regularly and as needed, and to continue to see regular doctors if possible, know and why prescribed medications, and to be present at the appointments, participate in healthcare decisions, and then receive guidance on family planning and to consent to reproductive health services. This medication is something that AW and the doctor both discussed, both agreed on. It is something that AW feels like she needs and would benefit from. So today I would ask that she be able to start that medication. I will move on to RJ. He is placed with his paternal grandmother. He is doing well. He is a fun, spunky, happy boy. He is going to school. They're currently working on an IEP evaluation for him to see if there's any services that he would benefit from in school. He is up to date on all his medical and dental. He goes to speech therapy every week, and that he's been participating and he's doing well in that. He's currently playing football and he really likes that. And then RJ went to a few counseling sessions at the YWCA, and the therapist that he was assigned to, it just really wasn't a good fit. The questions she was asking him just were not like age appropriate, and were really causing him just more confusion. I had spoke with the caregiver and Mr. Thomas and Ms. Woodenberg, and so we stopped that service, and I had submitted a referral to Family Outreach Center for a new therapist. RJ had also requested to have a male therapist. So he just started with the male therapist at Family Outreach Center. So they're working on rapport, making goals, and that seems to be going good so far.
He's up to date on all his medical appointments.
He is, yes.
How about dental appointments?
He is.
There were some concerns from the relative foster home that there's simply too many services currently attached to our RT. We call them RJ, of course. So have you heard that concern? Yeah, yes. The caregiver and I have talked about it, and I definitely agree. Like, it's a lot for RJ. He's, 6 years old. So with the speech, the counseling, and then he has parenting times, and then they're doing the IEP evaluation. And football. Yeah. So it is a lot. The speech therapy, like, that is something that is needed. It is outpatient right now.
our hope would be that they could get him to a point where speech therapy would just be part of his IEP, and he would receive speech in school and then not have to go to outpatient. So then that would be one last appointment. And then with therapy, that is just something that he really needs. With everything that he has experienced, he does really struggle a lot with separation anxiety, and that would be like my biggest concern for him, and I would say that the caregiver's biggest concern as well. He really struggles when he has to leave Mr. Thomas and Miss Woodenberg. He just really doesn't understand like why he can't be back home with them. He misses them. He just really wants to be with them. So it's just a lot for him to take.
However, that is being worked on as we go along. We're just actually beginning all those services, correct?
Yes.
Anything else about RJ?
Both of the kids have monthly sibling visits. Both of the caregivers coordinate these sibling visits. They have done a phenomenal job at making sure that these happen. They have some months.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The
Yeah.
record should reflect that Ms. Woodenberg just joined us. And I should have mentioned at the beginning when I was introducing everyone that Mr. Thomas is present. He has been the entire time. Sorry for the interruption. Ms. Sparks, please resume.
Thank you. The caregivers have done a really good job coordinating sibling visits, making sure that those happen. And they've even had it where sibling visits have happened more than once a month. So that's been great for both kids. RJ does seem to struggle a little bit after the sibling visits, but we're working on it. We're getting there. So just really trying to keep their bond and relationship strong.
Any other services that either of these children could utilize currently that is not being utilized?
I don't believe so, but I do want to add, Anaya did have a trauma assessment that was done, I believe August 28th. So I have received the preliminary result report, but have not received the full report yet.
And that is the one of in a packet of your supportive documents, a September 4th initial assessment, correct?
That is correct.
And there are some recommendations in that assessment, and you will follow through on those, correct?
Absolutely.
Right. Anything else?
Not regarding the children. Nope.
All right. Let's move on to the parents. Let's start with Mr. Thomas. Can you update the court on his progress?
Yeah. So, Mr. Thomas, I will start with, I'll just go through the barriers. Substance abuse. He is scheduled to complete a substance abuse evaluation this week. This reporting period, he completed 6 randomized drug screenings. 5 of those were positive for THC, and then 1 was positive for THC and amphetamine. With that substance abuse evaluation, I'll just make sure that any of the recommendations are followed. Mr. Thomas reported that he was not sure why the amphetamine had shown up on his drug screen. So that's something that we'll continue to monitor.
And that's the last test that we have in that packet to date at 9/10 of September 10th of this year, correct?
That is correct.
And do you know of any prescription that he may be taking that would show positive for amphetamines?
Not that I'm aware of. I did ask if he had taken any medication, and I did not get a response from that text message.
All right. You will follow up on that, though?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Continue, please.
The next barrier, housing. This is something that Mr. Thomas has been actively working on since he was discharged from being incarcerated. Right now, like Section 8 does not have any openings. And then with the felony on his record, it's just been a huge barrier in getting housing. I was able to just yesterday locate a packet of private landlords that would potentially rent to people that have a felony. So I will be getting that to Mr. Thomas. And then if I am keeping my eyes open for anything that I'm able to send his way to help with the housing barrier. But he has been doing a really good job at looking and doing what he can to find housing.
All right. And employment goes hand in hand with housing likewise.
That is correct. Yep. And I also was able to find for employment, was able to find a packet of a list of employers that hire people with felonies. So along with the housing list, I will be getting the employment list to Mr. Thomas.
All right. Continue with the barriers.
Okay. So emotional stability, Mr. Thomas had went to an intake at the YWCA for counseling. In conversation with Mr. Thomas, we did decide that this wasn't the best fit for him. When he went to the intake, the therapist wanted to just put Mr. Thomas in like group sessions and not do individual sessions. Mr. Thomas and I both agreed that starting out, like the individual sessions would be more beneficial than just being put into group sessions. So we did stop the service with YWCA. I submitted a referral through the Family Outreach Center. So I have not been told by Family Outreach if he's been assigned a therapist yet, but the referral has been submitted, and once he's assigned, he'll be able to start that. And then, so with going to the YWCA, the hope was they could kind of tackle the mental health and the domestic violence like in one, so that way he wasn't having to go to 2 different appointments, 2 different therapists. So at Family Outreach, the therapist that sees him, I had requested that they're able to work with on the mental health and the domestic violence, so that way he's just having to see one person.
And if needed, can FOC also address the issue of substance abuse?
I believe so, that he will be getting the substance use evaluation through Family Outreach. So that is something I can request of them, like if they can assign a therapist that is able to work on that with him.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah.
Any other barriers?
So parenting skills, I just kudos to Mr. Thomas. This has been, it's listed as a barrier, but he has done a phenomenal job. I've never had a parent that has attended so many of their kids' appointments and that has been so involved. Mr. Thomas has went to RJ's football practices, his football games. He goes to his vision, medical, and dental appointments. He also goes to speech therapy. During this reporting period, the caregiver's vehicle broke down. And so Mr. Thomas has borrowed a friend's vehicle and has been able to transport RJ and the caregiver to the school and pick them up. So that way, like RJ is still able to be getting back and forth to school. The caregiver does not live in the district that RJ attended school in at removal. So that has just been really huge in keeping him in his same school. So phenomenal job. Like I've never had a parent that has been so heavily involved. He sees RJ on a daily basis. And I know that RJ really, really loves that. Mr. Thomas just started foster care supportive visitation services. So he has a visit coach that meets with him for 1 hour a week, and then is part of a visit 1 hour a week, and then able to work with Mr. Thomas on any needs, and then it's just processing parenting skills and things like that with Mr. Thomas.
So he's a great asset and a great help as far as to the relative foster caregiver, correct?
Yes.
And he does have extended parenting time if he takes RJ to all the appointments.
Yes, that is, yes.
And that may be the reason why RJ has separation anxiety, probably to the level that he does.
I would say no, because the separation anxiety really was evident before Mr. Thomas was even discharged from incarceration. When he first came into care and was doing visits with just Ms. Wittenberg, he had a really hard time leaving the visits.
Any other barriers for Mr. Thomas?
I have resource availability listed, but again, that ties into the employment and housing. Just something that we continue to work on. The agency does provide a weekly gas card to Mr. Thomas to help with gas and getting to parenting times, his appointments, and then RJ's appointments.
All right. So he does drive the child to the appointments and it's appropriate, correct?
With the caregiver, yes.
All right. Have you followed up and checked to make sure that he has a valid driver's license if he's driving?
I have not, but that is something that I can do.
Thank you. Any other areas or barriers that Mr. Thomas needs to address?
Not at this time.
Okay. Let's move on. Has anybody come forth, or did you receive any information as to who the unknown father may be for AW?
No.
So no man has come forth and said that he could be the father?
No.
Have you inquired of Miss Woodenberg?
I did, and she has stated that she does not know who the father is.
You'll continue to research that issue, though?
Yes.
Wonderful. Let's move on to Miss Woodenberg. Can you update the court on her barriers in progress?
Yeah, so I will start with substance abuse. This last reporting period, Miss Woodenberg was inpatient at the Our Hope program. September 11th, she successfully completed that program and was discharged. The therapist at the program had nothing but great things to say about Miss Woodenberg. She was a positive role model to the other women in the home, had attended all group sessions, individual sessions. She went to 4 AA meetings a week, just very involved in her treatment and doing what she needed to do. Since being discharged from Our Hope, Ms. Woodenberg did complete 2 randomized drug screenings, and both of those came back negative for drugs and alcohol. And then while she was at Our Hope, anytime she went off grounds, when she came back to the home, she was screened as well, and all those were negative.
Just so the record is clean, her drug of choice is actually alcohol. That's the biggest issue, correct?
Correct.
Any illegal substance abuse or use in the past?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. And how often is she screened for alcohol currently?
She does randomized screenings once a week. So she calls into a number every morning, and then if her color is called, she goes into a family outreach center that day and gets screened.
And so far, you had 2 of those screens and they were negative?
Correct.
Wonderful. What is the next barrier for Ms. Woodenberg?
For substance abuse, I'll just add one more thing. So since being discharged from Our Hope, Ms. Woodenberg will be participating in a program at the Family Outreach Center, which will provide her with a therapist, a case manager, and a recovery coach. Ms. Woodenberg has also agreed and wants to continue going to AA classes. So we would just encourage that. That is something that she continue. The next one, parenting skills. Ms. Woodenberg does very well at her parenting times. She makes all of her visits. While at Our Hope, she did have parenting times there. She provided snacks, provided toys, very engaged and involved with RJ. She's currently participating in foster care supportive visitation through DA Blodgett. So she has a visit coach who meets with her once a week to discuss parenting skills. And then the visit coach is part of a visit a week.
And so we're clear, she only has parenting time currently with RJ, correct?
That is correct.
Because AW is simply not at a point where she wishes any contact with Ms. Woodenberg, correct?
But there's also a no contact order in place.
All right. So let's, while we're on that subject, there is a no contact order in a criminal matter in which AW is the victim. Can you tell the court what, if any, updates we have on the criminal proceedings?
Yeah, so my understanding is on September 10th, Ms. Wittenberg had a hearing. And so that now will be going to a trial, and that is scheduled for, I believe, April 7th, 2025.
That's a long ways away.
It is.
Do you know what happened at the status conference on 9/10 besides the refusal?
I was not a part of it. I know that the lawyer that is working with Ms. Wittenberg on the criminal part had recommended for her to go to trial.
Okay. And you'll keep track of what the progress in that case may be?
Yes.
Do you support the no contact provision, at least currently in this case, likewise between AW and Ms. Wittenberg?
I do support the no contact order.
And that's because of the past trauma that the AW had suffered while in the care of Ms. Wittenberg, correct?
Correct.
And the pending criminal case?
That is correct. And how fragile Anaya's mental health is at this time.
Right. And that is basically to protect both AW and Ms. Wittenberg from any possible consequences of improper contact, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's move on to the next barrier that Ms. Wittenberg has, and I believe that may be housing and employment.
So Ms. Wittenberg did accept a position as a server at Texas Roadhouse, and that had happened just prior to her being discharged from Our Hope. In talking with Ms. Wittenberg last week, that position was just not a good fit for her. So she is currently not employed, but is actively looking. For domestic relationships, Ms. Wittenberg does need to complete domestic violence therapy with the counselor at the Family Outreach Center. Our hope and intention is that the counselor is able to work with Ms. Wittenberg on the mental health and domestic violence, like all together. So that way she's just seeing one therapist. There's not any goals or treatments that are like set in stone yet because it's all still new.
Okay, and how about housing?
Ms. Wittenberg does have Section 8 housing. She has a 2-bedroom apartment.
Is that appropriate for her and her children?
It is. Ms. Wittenberg does wish and is trying to find a different home, just in a better neighborhood for the children. So that is something that she's working on. The home is appropriate, though.
All right. Did you have a chance to do a physical visit at home?
I did do a visit in the home in June prior to Ms. Wittenberg going inpatient.
Any other barriers for Ms. Wittenberg?
Emotional stability. So during this reporting period, she was at Our Hope receiving therapy. Ms. Wittenberg was able to process, while at Our Hope, was able to really process her own trauma, events that brought her children into care, and her substance use. Each visit with her, she's taking more accountability for her actions. A concern that I do have is, like, in conversation, she's taking accountability, but then also will make comments that diminish like what the drinking effects had on the children. So that is just something that we would ask the therapist to continue processing with Ms. Wittenberg.
In other words, there is at least some areas of concern about minimizing.
Yes.
And that will be addressed in counseling, as you stated, correct?
Yes.
Any other concerns?
Not with emotional stability. The other barrier is social support. So Ms. Wittenberg does have a few really close friends that are really great positive supports for her. The agency would encourage Ms. Wittenberg to continue going to the AA support groups and also just increasing her positive supports. That would be a huge beneficial for her.
Anything else about Ms. Woodenberg?
Not at this time.
All right. Anything else about the case that's not in your reports or otherwise in your testimony here today that you believe the court should be aware of?
Not at this time.
Okay. Your recommendations?
AW and RJ continue to remain temporary court wards under the care and supervision of the Department of Health and Human Services and Wellspring Lutheran Services. AW and RJ remain placed with their relative placement or licensed foster home. Ms. Woodenberg and Mr. Thomas comply with and benefit from a parent agency treatment agreement. Mr. Thomas's parenting time be monitored by the agency or its designee. Ms. Woodenberg's parenting times be supervised by the agency or designee or unsupervised at the discretion of the supervising agency. The no contact order between AW and Ms. Woodenberg continue. Parenting times between AW and Ms. Woodenberg remain suspended and that the matter be reviewed in 90 days. That's what I have in my report. I just want to also add about the medication and either getting, clarification from Judge McNabb on, does AW have the ability to make the decision to take the Prozac, or will Judge McNabb give the agency permission to sign off on that?
All right. Anything else?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Mobilia.
Just a couple of questions, Your Honor. Have you retested Mr. Thomas after 9/12? That's the last screen.
He has not been tested. He was scheduled for 2 randomized screenings after that one, but both of those screenings were missed.
Okay, does Mr. Thomas understand if he misses those, they're considered positive?
He does, and I did speak with him over text message about this yesterday. And there was some confusion. Mr. Thomas had thought that he was just doing the substance use evaluation and didn't need to continue to do the randomized drug screenings. So it was a confusion. He does now know, he's doing the evaluation and is doing the randomized drug screenings. So it's something we'll continue to monitor. I don't want to fault him for any confusion.
And marijuana is legal. You're not holding that against him in terms of sobriety, are you?
I am not. And Mr. Thomas and I have discussed that. As long as it's being used recreationally and not being used as something that he's dependent on or using it to cope, then that's fine.
And his levels are pretty low. They're not up the Richter scale, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then with regard to parenting time, is your recommendation that he could have unsupervised parenting time this report period possibly?
Not at this time. We would still have the caregiver be supervising any parenting times in contact.
You said that's his biggest strength, parenting time. So I'm confused as why you wouldn't recommend some unsupervised parenting time.
So we would just want to see how services are going, the compliance with services, and just make sure that, drug screenings are remaining good. So I believe that that is something we could definitely recommend within the next 90 days.
But he is compliant with all of your requests and following through and meeting with you, it seems like, from the reports.
Yeah, he has been.
Okay. And with regard to unknown father, there's no information at all from anybody, not even AW?
There's nothing.
Okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ortega.
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to quickly put on the record that Ms. Woodenberg's late appearance today is entirely my fault. I sent an email to her that said it started at 9:30, and of course it did not. And so when I noticed she wasn't here, I had somebody contact her right away to log in. So I apologize to the court for that and to my client. And when I didn't see her here, I thought that was weird because she's very, as you can hear, active in this case. So Ms. Sparks, you recognize with a criminal matter that this Ms. Woodenberg has to be entirely careful about how she talks about things related to her alcohol abuse, and some of the history?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, I
okay.
do.
Okay. And so that's a little bit of a struggle for her to be, to show remorse, and then that maybe some reason for some of the hesitancy you hear when she talks about minimizing.
I can understand how that like puts her in a tough position. The agency though needs to see and hear full accountability for what has happened. Diminishing the effects of the drinking and the domestic violence on the kids would create some safety concerns of putting the kids back in the home if she's not fully recognizing the effects that this has had on them.
Is it fair to say she's been very open about her alcohol abuse?
Yes.
Okay. And essentially from the beginning, and I think as she pled in this case, she was very forthcoming that she does have an alcohol issue, correct?
Yeah, she had been very forthcoming. At the beginning of the case, she was reporting that like she had been sober, she wasn't drinking, and that was not the case. She had ended up coming to us one day and just really being forthcoming and letting us know like the struggle, and we were able to get her some inpatient help, which has been great. I think it's been the best thing for her. So we would just encourage her to continue being open, even if it's hard, so that way the more open she is, the more help I can provide.
Okay. Has she presented you with the name of a friend or neighbor that would potentially be able to supervise some more visits for her between she and RJ?
Yes.
Okay. And did you do any kind of background checks on that friend? And is that friend approved to supervise some visitation?
So we did do background checks. She is approved. I this week will be reaching out to Ms. Wittenberg to schedule a quick meeting with her and her friend to develop a safety plan and just put things in place like expectations, rules, and whatnot. And then this friend would be able to supervise those visits.
Okay, great. And you mentioned that Mr. Thomas has nearly daily contact with RJ. RJ is placed with his mother, correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Thomas is, so that makes that contact a little easier for him?
Yes.
Does Mr. Thomas live with his mother?
He does not.
Okay. And then Miss Woodenberg actually has some of her visitations supervised by that caregiver as well, right?
Once a week, yes.
Okay.
Which would now be, after the meeting, her friend will be supervising. So that way it's one less thing off RJ's caregiver.
Okay, great. And then does Miss Woodenberg still have some agency supervised visits?
She does once a week with the supportive visitation coach.
Okay. And how long is that supportive visitation scheduled to continue?
It is an 18-week long program.
And did she start that while she was at Our Hope or after she got out?
She did start while she was there, but it was like towards the end of her time being there.
Okay.
I believe they're up to week 4 or 5 of the program.
And do they have to do their kind of observations at the agency, or are they able to do that while she's having visits with her friend?
She is able to do them with the friend. The friend would be able to be there. Yep.
Okay, great. As far as the Prozac for AW, I may have glossed over the testimony a little bit. Did you discuss with the doctor maybe a different type of drug before moving right to Prozac that could be helpful for AW?
I personally have not spoke with the doctor, and I was not at that appointment. In speaking with the caregiver, the Prozac is what the doctor felt would work best for AW at this time with her pretty significant fragile mental health.
Is this a conversation that you can have directly with the provider to see if there is any other alternative that Ms. Woodenberg may be comfortable beginning with, and yet still following a doctor recommendation?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to have that conversation. with the doctor. And I did encourage and ask Ms. Wittenberg to call and speak with the doctor to get the doctor's thoughts on like why Prozac, the benefits, any risk and whatnot. So that way she'd be hearing it straight from the doctor and not, be relaying information.
Sure. Have you followed up with Ms. Wittenberg as to whether she made that call?
I did follow up with her yesterday. I did not hear back. I know that there was like a lot of phone outages yesterday, which could have been, I'm assuming, part of that because she typically is responsive.
Okay. So you can also follow up with her on that to see what she learned from the provider?
Yeah.
Are you aware that she's attending AA meetings nearly daily?
That is something that she had stated that she was going to be doing. I have not received any like notifications from the AA instructor, like any signed attendance records or anything though.
Okay. Have you requested those from Ms. Wittenberg yet?
I have not, but they will be requested.
Okay, perfect. And that's what you would require from her is the sign-in sheet?
Yep.
Aside from the current no contact order between AW and Ms. Wittenberg, has the child actually expressed that she does not want to see Ms. Wittenberg at this time?
She has said that multiple times. Yes.
Okay. So she's clearly not ready for contact, even if the court were to lift it today.
Correct. She is not ready. And in speaking with the therapist, the AW therapist would not be in support of it at this time.
And you did mention in your recommendations that for Ms. Wittenberg, there could be some unsupervised contact at the discretion of the agency. If that continues to be ordered, is there some sort of plan in the next reporting period that the agency could provide so that Ms. Wittenberg can end up at some unsupervised parenting time, especially since the holidays will occur prior to the next review?
Yeah, so that is actually something my supervisor and I have been talking about, and with Ms. Wittenberg now being out of inpatient, we would just want to see progress in services, clean screens, and just making sure like she's remaining sober. And that is something that we'll be like making kind of like a list with Ms. Wittenberg, so that way it's very clear and she knows what steps she needs to do to get the unsupervised. And we would do the same thing with Mr. Thomas.
Great. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Kasorik, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor, I think I can cover those issues in my closing. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Mobilia, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Mr. Kasorik, any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Ortega, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Mobilia, witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Closing statements, Mr. Kasorik.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I had a chance to visit via Zoom, a very short visit with RJ. He's very busy. He's playing football. He has all the counseling sessions too that he has to attend. So he's doing as best as he can. And I'm really happy that he is with a relative caregiver. I'm concerned about the separation anxiety that the court heard about today, but I think we all are, and that can be addressed too in counseling. As far as the recommendations are concerned, as far as Anaya is concerned, I did have contact with the current foster caregivers, and I will see her because of her schedule too, and the concerns about court with her and her anxiety. I plan on seeing her this afternoon, so I'll file a email about my visit with her here today with the court. As far as the recommendations are concerned, I believe they are appropriate. I do believe that it's Anaya's best interest to continue the no contact provision in this case, especially with the pending criminal charge, Your Honor. Likewise, I think that the rest of the parenting time can be at the discretion of the agency. Once Mr. Thomas and Ms. Wittenberg show substantial progress, we can probably move towards some unsupervised contact, see how that goes with their respective children. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, we do support the recommendations of the agency today. I want to applaud my client. This may be the first client I've had go through Our Hope and successfully complete the program. And so it doesn't happen too often. So I'm happy to congratulate her today. And she's taking off running full force into sobriety. I just encourage her to continue on that path. It can only do her and her children well. I know that she was hoping to institute some sort of contact with AW through therapy, so like a therapeutic setting to start working on issues. It's clear from the testimony in the record that AW is not close to that. And with the trauma report, there will be some recommendations with that as well. And so it's appropriate to continue the next reporting period and get those things figured out. I would ask that the court allow a little time for Ms. Wonenberg to speak with AW's physician because just Prozac and psychotropic medications seem so severe when you're talking with children. I know that the child says she wants it, which is somewhat, it's just not typical for a teenager to say, I want to go on Prozac and jump right to that without a step up type thing, or see if something less severe can be utilized first. If that has already been fleshed out and Ms. Woodenberg is, talks with the provider and is clear that that is the primary recommendation of the physician, I don't think there will be any issue with her giving that consent at that time, but I would ask for a little time for her to do that before the court orders it right away. Other than that, I do think that right now, Ms. Wittenberg should be really focusing on sobriety. I'm hoping the court's not too concerned with employment quite yet, as she's going to work on these other things and go through the programs to the Family Outreach Center. And so I ask the court to adopt the recommendations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Mobilia.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll indicate to the court that Mr. Thomas was released from prison on June 28th. So for the last 3 months, he's working very diligently with the agency. He's engaged in services and certainly engaged in parenting time and his child's health and well-being. So I asked the court to adopt the recommendations with the consideration that the agency take into account his parenting time, his involvement, and the holidays coming up. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court finds that the lawyer guardian ad litem has complied with the requirements of the statute. And of course, that's on the condition that he does meet with
AW.
Right, correct. AW and provide an email to confirm that. That reasonable efforts have been made to preserve and reunify the family, make it possible for these children to safely return home, that those reasonable efforts for reunification should be continued. That in accordance with the statute, progress towards alleviating or mitigating the conditions that cause the children to be placed or remain in temporary foster care has not been made by either parent. That does not mean that they have not made progress. Both of you have made tremendous progress. Very pleased to see your progress. Ms. Wittenberg, your sobriety and your successful graduation from Our Hope is definitely something to celebrate. Definitely, that should be your focus. So want to see you work on employment and those other barriers, but you've really made huge progress on the biggest one. So congratulations. And Mr. Thomas, same with you. You're doing very well, and just encourage you to continue engaging the way you have. The children's continued placement is necessary and appropriate, is meeting each of their individual needs, that the needs of each of these children can be met in a foster family home. That sibling contact is occurring according to law. The siblings are not in joint placement because one child is placed with the paternal grandmother and the other is with fictive kin. That parenting time of AW with her mother, even if supervised, may be harmful to her, and that's just based on the testimony today. The evidence in this case so far, along with the pending criminal case. The court orders that these children continue their placement in the protective and temporary court of the court, continue their placement with the Department for Care and Supervision. That the adjudicated respondents, Mariah Wittenberg, Robert Thomas and the unknown father comply with and benefit from the case service plan. That parenting time and Ms. Wittenberg with RJ is at the discretion of the agency. That parenting time of Mr. Thomas is also at the discretion of the agency to allow unsupervised or supervised parenting time by its designee. Continue the attorneys in this matter. And as far as the Prozac prescription goes, I will indicate that Ms. Wittenberg needs to contact that physician within 7 days to discuss that treatment. And if necessary, the court will sign an order ordering prescription, whatever that physician orders after consulting with Ms. Wittenberg or after she's had the opportunity to consult with that physician. Otherwise, the court will order whatever the prescription, whatever the physician prescribes at this point. Mr. Thomas and Ms. Wittenberg, keep up the good work.
Thank
We're
you.
adjourned.
Thank you, Ron.